I thought I was giving my son the wedding of his dreams, but what I was really doing was buying his ticket to financial ruin at the hands of a cold-hearted con artist. What she didn't realize, though, was that messing with my son meant messing with me, and a mother's love, once scorned, can become the most precise, unwavering instrument of justice you've ever seen. I knew then that Jessica Miller would never see Andrew's money, or mine, again. Before we dive into how I turned a dream wedding into a federal bust, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Your support means the world to me. My name is Margaret Thompson, though most people call me Maggie. For 47 years, I've been a kindergarten teacher here in Charleston, a profession I've always poured my heart into. It's a calling, not just a job, shaping young minds, fostering kindness. My life has been one of quiet dedication and immense love, especially for my late husband Arthur and our only son Andrew. When Arthur passed 3 years ago, it left a void that I still feel every day, but I found solace in my work, my community, and most of all in Andrew. He's a good man, my Andrew, kind-hearted, a little bit naive sometimes, but fiercely loyal. Arthur's life insurance, along with my own savings, was meant to secure my retirement and provide a little nest egg for Andrew's future, something I had worked tirelessly for my entire life. We had a comfortable, stable life in our charming little house, full of memories, and I thought we were set. Then, 6 months ago, Andrew met Jessica Miller. He was still grieving and perhaps a little vulnerable. She was a pediatric nurse, he told me, with a smile that could light up a room and a gentle demeanor that seemed to soothe his aching heart. When he brought her home to meet me, she was everything he described and more: beautiful, articulate, attentive. She listened intently to stories about Arthur, expressed empathy for my loss, and praised Andrew endlessly. She made him laugh again, a sound I hadn't heard nearly enough since his father passed. I saw Andrew falling deeply, completely in love, and honestly, a huge part of me was just so relieved to see him happy again. He deserved that after everything he'd been through. Jessica was a master at making herself indispensable. She'd cook for Andrew, help him organize his apartment, even offer to run errands for me. She was always perfectly put together, never a hair out of place, with an air of delicate vulnerability that drew you in. Soon enough, the engagement came, and Andrew, beaming, called me to share the news. My heart swelled with joy. Of course, I offered to help with the wedding. "Anything you need, darling," I told him. And Jessica, bless her heart, had a vision. A grand, elegant affair at the historic Bellamy Estate here in Charleston, with 2,000 white roses, a 7-tier cake, and a Vera Wang gown. That, she confessed with a bashful smile, was her childhood dream. The total bill, she hinted subtly, would be upwards of $40,000, maybe even $50,000. It was a lot, certainly more than I had initially envisioned, but Andrew was so happy. This was his dream too, I convinced myself. So I drew from Arthur's life insurance, dipped into my savings, and even took out a small loan against the house. What was money, really, if it meant securing my son's happiness and future? I wrote the checks, made the deposits, handled the initial payments for the Bellamy estate, the caterers, the florist. Jessica, of course, was always so grateful, so appreciative, always insisted on handling her side of the payments in cash, saying her family preferred anonymity, which struck me as a little odd, but I dismissed it as a quirk. I even gave her my grandmother's pearl necklace, a string of heirlooms that had been passed down through generations of Thompson women. It was a gesture of welcome, a symbol of her becoming part of our family. She cried, hugged me tight, and promised to cherish them forever. I truly believed her. But there were little things, tiny pinpricks of doubt, that started to accumulate. She never seemed to have any family of her own I could contact. No childhood friends, no stories that went further back than a few years. When I asked about her parents, she'd grow vague, her eyes welling up, explaining a tragic past that felt just a touch too perfectly sad. Still, I pushed these doubts away. Love, I told myself, could make us overlook things. The real turning point, the moment my world fractured and then calcified into cold resolve, happened about 2 months before the wedding. I was visiting Andrew at his apartment, helping him sort through some old boxes, when Jessica stepped out of the bedroom, clearly agitated. She didn't see me, having just come from the bathroom, and she was on the phone, her voice a low, furious hiss. "Marcus, I don't care!" He's a mark, a good, pathetic mark, and I'm not letting him go. The old bat has already coughed up $40,000, and once we're married, I'll have access to all his accounts. Just keep your mouth shut and make sure you have the new identities ready after the honeymoon. That old woman's pearl necklace, I'll hawk it the moment we're out of here. The air left my lungs in a painful gasp. My legs felt like jelly. The old bat. That was me? He's a mark. That was my Andrew, my grandmother's pearls, hawked. Every word was a poisoned arrow piercing my heart. I clutched the doorframe, my vision swimming. Jessica, my son's fiancée. The sweet, vulnerable pediatric nurse. It was all a lie. A calculated, cruel deception. She was a predator, and my son, my precious Andrew, was her prey. I managed to make some excuse about feeling unwell, quickly left the apartment, and drove home in a daze. The tears came then, hot and stinging, blurring the road ahead. My chest ached with an intensity I hadn't felt since Arthur passed. But beneath the profound hurt, something else began to simmer. A cold, hard anger. This wasn't just about money. This was about Andrew's future, his trust, his very heart. She was destroying him, and I, his mother, had unwittingly funded it. The victim in me wanted to curl up and vanish, but the mother in me, the protective, fierce mother, rose from the ashes of my shock. No, absolutely not. Jessica Miller had made a grave mistake. She had underestimated the old bat. The transformation was immediate, almost visceral. The gentle teacher, the grieving widow, the doting mother, she was still there, but now she was overlaid with something tougher, something strategic and unyielding. The tears dried, replaced by a focused intensity. I wouldn't just stop this wedding. I would dismantle this woman's entire facade. I would make sure she paid for every lie, every stolen tear, every penny she tried to extort from my son. Justice wasn't enough. I wanted her exposed, completely, irrevocably. My first step was methodical. I bought a new notebook, plain and unassuming, and started documenting everything. Every payment I'd made, every suspicious comment, every vague answer from Jessica. Dates, amounts, conversations. I laid it all out. Then I found Patricia Hayes. Patricia wasn't just any private investigator. She was a former police detective, known for her expertise in fraud cases, recommended by a friend who'd once needed discreet help. I met her in a small, out-of-the-way coffee shop, the kind where no one pays attention to anyone else. I laid out my suspicions. The overheard phone call, the lack of family, the cash-only payments. Patricia listened intently, her eyes sharp and assessing. She didn't dismiss me, didn't patronize. She simply nodded. "Maggie," she said, "you're a smart woman. Your gut is usually right about people." She assured me she'd be discreet. Within 2 weeks, Patricia called me back. Her voice was calm, but the information she delivered hit like a thunderclap. "Maggie, there is no Jessica Miller, pediatric nurse. Not one with that background, anyway. Her real name is Sarah Collins. She's a professional con artist, a serial scammer with a rap sheet stretching across 3 states for fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny. And that, Marcus, you overheard? His full name is Marcus Rivera. He's been an accomplice in some of her past schemes, but they had a very messy breakup after she reportedly fleeced him for a significant sum too. He's probably not too fond of her." The relief of having my suspicions confirmed was quickly overshadowed by the scale of the deceit. Sarah Collins. It all made chilling sense. The perfectly constructed vulnerability, the vague backstory, the charming smiles. It was all a performance. But then a new thought sparked. Marcus Rivera. If he'd been scammed by her too, he might be an ally. The enemy of my enemy, as they say. I instructed Patricia to find Marcus Rivera. It took her another week, but she did. He was living quietly in a small town in Georgia, trying to rebuild his life after his own encounter with Sarah. I called him, carefully introducing myself as Andrew Thompson's mother. I could hear the suspicion in his voice. "Look," I said, "I know about Sarah Collins, and I know she scammed you too. I'm not here to judge. I'm here because she's about to marry my son and ruin his life, just like she tried to ruin yours. I think we can help each other." He was hesitant, wary, but when I mentioned the pearl necklace, the specific details I'd overheard, the sheer audacity of her plan, something shifted. He listened. I told him I needed evidence, undeniable proof, not just for Andrew, but for the authorities. He had kept things, recordings, documents, proof of their past schemes, things he thought might save him if she ever tried to turn on him. He had a treasure trove of her crimes, including audio recordings of her talking about Andrew and me. He was angry, hurt, and ready for revenge. We had a common enemy. Our plan started to take shape, meticulously, like pieces of a complex puzzle. Marcus, still burned by Sarah, was eager to help. He had recordings, bank statements from joint accounts she'd drained, even fake IDs she'd used. He agreed to come to Charleston for the wedding, to be the one to expose her. But first, I had to ensure the stage was set perfectly. I started to subtly shift my own finances. I closed the account where I'd deposited most of Arthur's life insurance, moving the remaining funds to a new, discreet account that Jessica knew nothing about. I revised my will, making sure Andrew was the sole beneficiary, but with a strict clause preventing any spouse from accessing his inheritance without significant prenuptial agreements. I even got a new security system for my house, just in case. Everything was done quietly, without a ripple. Meanwhile, Sarah, oblivious to the storm brewing, continued to tighten her grip on Andrew. She convinced him to add her name to his checking account, claiming it would be so much easier once we're married. She also persuaded him to upgrade his life insurance policy, naming her as the primary beneficiary. "For our future, darling," she'd cooed, no doubt picturing her post-honeymoon payout. Andrew, in his blind love, agreed to it all. He was becoming more isolated, too. Friends he'd had for years suddenly seemed to drift away, or so he thought. Sarah had a way of subtly undermining them, making Andrew believe they were jealous or didn't understand their special love. She even started to encourage him to be less dependent on me, suggesting I was overprotective. It hurt, but I knew it was part of her game, and I had to play along. I pretended to be a little hurt, a little distant, making her believe her manipulations were working, that I was no longer a threat. The most crucial part of my plan involved the wedding vendors. I had initially handled all the deposits, but about a month before the wedding, I started calling them individually: the caterers, the florists, the band, the Bellamy Estate coordinator. "Oh yes," I'd say with a sweet, innocent tone. "I've spoken with Jessica, and she assured me that her family would be handling all the final payments. They're such a private family. You know, they want to take care of everything themselves. She mentioned they'd be wiring the final balance directly to you a week before the wedding, so no need to worry about me." I made it sound like Jessica was taking over, being so responsible. I knew, of course, that her family was non-existent, and no payments would ever arrive. The goal was to create maximum chaos and financial pressure at the venue on the wedding day itself, ensuring her lack of resources would be glaringly apparent. A few days before the wedding, I told Andrew that I'd decided to take a short, last-minute trip out of town. "A little spa weekend, darling," I chirped, "just to relax before the big day. I'll be back Sunday evening, refreshed and ready for all the celebrations." He seemed a little surprised, but Sarah, I could tell, was silently thrilled. She thought I was out of the picture. She thought she had won. Little did she know, I was simply positioning myself for the perfect entrance. The wedding day arrived, bright and beautiful, a perfect Charleston spring day. The Bellamy Estate was stunning, draped in white roses, just as Sarah had planned. Guests began to arrive, filling the grand chapel. Andrew looked nervous but incredibly handsome in his tuxedo. Sarah, in her $12,000 Vera Wang gown, looked absolutely breathtaking, a vision of angelic beauty. The pearls I had given her gleamed around her neck. She radiated an air of serene joy, the perfect picture of an innocent bride. My stomach churned, a mix of dread and icy resolve. My private investigator, Patricia, was positioned discreetly among the guests, making sure everything was unfolding as planned. The ceremony was about to begin when the first cracks appeared in Sarah's perfect facade. A frantic-looking coordinator from the Bellamy estate rushed over to a now visibly agitated Sarah. "Ms. Miller, we have a problem. The final payment for the venue still hasn't come through. The caterers are threatening to stop setting up, and the florist is refusing to release the remaining roses. We tried to reach your family, as Mrs. Thompson instructed us, but we haven't been able to make contact." Sarah's perfect smile faltered. Her eyes darted around, a flash of panic, quickly masked. "There must be a mistake," she hissed. "My family wired the money days ago, but there was no money," and the coordinator was firm. Andrew, overhearing the escalating whispers, looked confused and worried. "What's going on, Jessica?" he asked, his brow furrowed. She brushed him off, a little too harshly. "Just a minor hiccup, darling. My parents are always so dramatic about money." More vendors started to approach, their voices rising, the murmurs among the guests growing louder. The fantasy wedding was quickly descending into a financial nightmare, right before everyone's eyes. Sarah's carefully constructed composure was cracking. She was trying to make calls, her voice tight with suppressed fury. People were starting to stare. And then the chapel doors, which had just been closed, swung open again, and there I was, not on a spa weekend, but standing at the back of the chapel, impeccably dressed, my gaze fixed directly on Sarah. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear flicker in their depths. Her face went slack, the color draining from her cheeks. She knew. She knew I knew. But that wasn't the final blow. Behind me, Marcus Rivera stepped forward, a grim determination on his face. He held a stack of documents and a small portable speaker. "Stop!" Marcus's voice boomed through the chapel, cutting through the rising tide of anxious whispers and vendor complaints. All eyes, including Andrew's, turned to him. Sarah's head snapped back, her eyes wide with terror as she saw Marcus. No, you can't be here," she stammered, her voice thin. Andrew looked utterly bewildered. "Mom? Who is this?" he asked, his voice laced with confusion and betrayal. "Andrew, darling," I said, my voice clear and steady, "this is Marcus Rivera. He has something very important to share with us, something that will explain everything." Marcus stepped forward, his eyes locked on Sarah. "Ladies and gentlemen, friends, family," he began, his voice resonating with a quiet authority. "My name is Marcus Rivera, and this woman, standing here in white, about to marry Andrew Thompson, is not Jessica Miller. Her real name is Sarah Collins, and she is a professional con artist." A collective gasp went through the chapel. Andrew's face was a mask of shock and disbelief. He looked from Marcus to me, then to Sarah, who stood frozen, her jaw clenched, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. "I have proof," Marcus continued, holding up the documents. "Photographic evidence, bank records, and official police reports from multiple states detailing her extensive history of fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny. Andrew, she systematically targets vulnerable, trusting men like you. And Maggie." He turned to me, a flash of shared resolve in his eyes. "She plans to drain Andrew's accounts, sell your family's precious pearl necklace, and disappear." He pressed a button on the speaker, and a voice, distinctly Sarah's, filled the chapel. It was the phone call, my phone call. "Marcus, I don't care. He's a mark, a good, pathetic mark, and I'm not letting him go. The old bat has already coughed up $40,000, and once we're married, I'll have access to all his accounts. Just keep your mouth shut and make sure you have the new identities ready after the honeymoon. That old woman's pearl necklace? I'll hawk it the moment we're out of here." The words echoed, sickeningly clear, through the stunned silence. Andrew's face crumbled. He stared at Sarah, his eyes wide with a horrifying realization. He looked at the pearls around her neck. "Jessica," he whispered, his voice broken. "Is this true?" Sarah's facade finally shattered. She burst into furious tears, her voice shrill. "It's a lie. He's lying. They're all lying. He's just trying to ruin my life because I left him." She lunged at Marcus, trying to snatch the speaker, but he expertly sidestepped her. "And there's more," Marcus said, playing another recording. This time Sarah's voice was contemptuous. "Andrew, please. He's a pathetic mama's boy, totally wrapped around his mother's finger. And as for Maggie, that lonely old bat thinks she's buying her way into my good graces. She's just a means to an end." Andrew recoiled as if struck. The pain in his eyes was unbearable to watch, but it was a pain that would ultimately free him. He looked at me, a flicker of understanding, then at Sarah, his face a mixture of rage and profound heartbreak. You monster!" he roared, his voice cracking. He reached up, his hands shaking, and snatched the pearl necklace from Sarah's neck. He strode towards me, his eyes filled with tears, and pressed the pearls into my hand. "Mom!" he choked out. "I'm so sorry. I should have listened." As the guests erupted in a cacophony of gasps, whispers, and outrage, two smartly dressed individuals, one man and one woman, stepped forward from the back of the chapel. They displayed badges. Sarah Collins, also known as Jessica Miller. The woman said, her voice calm and authoritative, "We are with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You are under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and banking violations. You have the right to remain silent." Sarah let out a scream of pure fury and despair. She struggled, but the agents were professionals, quickly cuffing her. The fairy tale wedding had disintegrated into a federal bust, a public spectacle of greed and betrayal. The guests were aghast, some openly weeping, others staring in horrified fascination. In the chaotic aftermath, Andrew was devastated, but he quickly found his footing, thanks to the undeniable truth in the evidence presented. He was humiliated, heartbroken, but also, I think, incredibly relieved. The weight of his own blindness lifted, replaced by a raw understanding. He apologized to me repeatedly, his voice thick with emotion. "Mom, how could I have been so stupid? Thank you. You saved me." He finally understood why I had done what I did, even though it meant inflicting pain on him. He saw it was out of the deepest love. The Bellamy estate coordinator, seeing the FBI take Sarah away, approached me cautiously. "Mrs. Thompson, what about the venue?" "The food is all prepared. The staff is here." I looked at Andrew, then around at the shell-shocked guests. "Andrew," I said gently, "we've paid for all this food. What do you say we turn this into an honest party? A celebration of truth and family and never letting a con artist win?" Andrew, a faint, weary smile touching his lips, nodded. "Yeah, Mom, an honest party. I like that. A lot." So the grand wedding, meant to be a fraudulent union, transformed into an unconventional, bittersweet reception. Guests, still reeling from the shock, slowly started to mingle, processing the unbelievable events. Andrew, holding my hand, greeted everyone, openly acknowledging the deception he'd fallen for, but also expressing profound gratitude for my intervention. He held my pearls tight, a symbolic gesture of the trust restored between us, the reclamation of our family's integrity. The staff, paid for by my initial deposits and a quick confirmation from my bank, served the food, and the band even played some softer tunes. It wasn't the wedding anyone had planned, but it was, in its own way, a powerful, healing event. Andrew, looking at me with clear eyes, told me he'd be much more cautious in future relationships and that he truly understood the value of real Thompson women in his life. He even laughed a little when he said it, a sound I hadn't realized how much I'd missed. Sarah Collins, or Jessica Miller, faced a lengthy prison sentence. Marcus Rivera, with the help of the FBI, was able to clear his name regarding some of the lesser charges he'd been involved in and started a new life, free from her shadow. Justice was served, and not just in a legal sense. For me, it was about restoring balance, reclaiming our peace, and most importantly, protecting my son. Andrew and I, after the dust settled, spent weeks talking, healing, and rebuilding. Our bond is stronger now, forged in the fires of betrayal and fierce protective love. I am back to my comfortable life, enjoying my retirement, no longer feeling the shadow of deceit looming over us. My home feels safe, my finances secure, and my heart, though it carries the scars, is at peace. I found a renewed sense of purpose, not in revenge, but in the quiet satisfaction of knowing I stood up for what was right and that I saved my son. It was never about being gleeful. It was about ensuring that decency prevailed. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.